Haven's POV.
I was exhausted. More than exhausted. I was so fatigued, I couldn't even think of a word to describe how tired I truly was. I wasn't even sure of the time, although I knew it was still Sunday. Or perhaps the wee hours of Monday. But my mind kept drifting back to the enormous, incredibly comfortable bed in our room at our house. I kept thinking about sinking into its plushness. About wrapping the fluffy duvet around me as I placed my head on the feathery pillows, and about snuggling up close to my Wesley as I drifted off to sleep with his arms around me. My Wesley. My mate. He must have sensed my exhaustion, because he'd seated us on the couch in his dad's office, instead of in the chairs across from his desk. Even Harrison sat on the arm on the far edge of the couch, a glass bottle of beer in his hand that he sipped at while we talked. Wesley explained everything to his dad, including all that Lennox had told them the first time they'd spoken with him. Tortured him. I shifted in my seat, my cheeks heating as I remembered my reaction to Wesley's brutality towards Lennox at the end. I didn't know what came over me, but my reaction to that side of him was visceral. Primal. I wasn't sure what that said about me, that I found his violence and dominance and possessiveness sexy and protective. But I didn't care. Perhaps it was because he still regarded me as a person, as my own being. It wasn't a possessiveness that owned, that commanded, but a possessiveness that cherished and consumed. It was a possession of equality, he was mine as much as I was his. And it was a mutual possession. I wanted everyone to know he belonged to me. And I'd never wanted that with anyone else. He claimed he didn't know how his dad knew who she was, Wesley told his dad with a sigh. What I was, I corrected him. He kept referring to me as a what instead of a who. Twin growls played in surround sound in my ears. One from Wesley on my right, and one from his dad on my left. We should kill him again, Wesley snarled, moving his arm from the back of the couch to around my shoulders, pulling me further into his body. Harrison huffed out a small laugh and shook his head. I'm not sorry he's dead, Wesley told him. I won't apologize for letting him die. For letting Nolan kill him. And I'm not asking you to, Harrison replied. I gave you full control of the situation with him, full control of his interrogation. It was your Luna, your mate, who he attacked after all. And I am proud of how you defended your pack and your Luna, he said. I'm sensing a but, Wesley sighed. But, Harrison said with a slight grin and a wink at me. We could have gotten more answers from him. Like what? I asked. And how? Wesley said Lennox's dad had Alpha commanded him to not tell. I thought those couldn't be broken. We could have found out where the Wainwrights disappeared to and why, Harrison told me. I looked at Wesley and his eyes were huge. Fuck! He breathed, rubbing his face with his free hand. What's he talking about, Wes? When you told me about the things your parents did when you were growing up, I asked my dad to look into them. He found nothing incriminating, but I asked him to check again, and he did. And when he did, we found that they'd left their house and completely disappeared. Off-grid. I blew out a slow breath and Wesley rushed out. I didn't tell you because it was during your performances and I didn't want to cause a distraction. And then, well. And then things went to shit. But it didn't matter that he hadn't told me. Because, 1, I had decided they weren't worth my time and energy by that point anyway, and 2, there were bigger things to worry about. It's okay, I whispered, taking his hand. And if he couldn't tell you about their real last name or their pack, then I doubt he'd have been able to tell you that either, I reassured him. Frederick had the king on standby, ready to step in if needed, Harrison told us. He could have lifted the Alpha command on him. He could have found out if Lennox was telling the truth about not knowing how they learned Haven's identity. Wesley stiffened next to me, his eyes darting to his dad. It's better this way, though, Wesley muttered. Yes, we would have gotten those answers from him about her birthday and their parents' real names and packs, but he paused and looked down at me where I sat tucked safely into his side, and I reached up to place my palm on his chest. But I think it's better if we keep her identity a secret, he finished. And why is that? Harrison asked him over the lip of his beer bottle. Wesley frowned. Well, people have already tried to use her, have been using her. hiding her away and promising their son she would be his mate and he could be an alpha. Imagine what would happen if more werewolves knew? If the entire world knew? There would be wolves and lycans and other supernaturals after her from even the far reaches of the globe. Others who would want to use her or claim her or... His jaw clenched and his eyes darkened, and he didn't finish his sentence, but I knew what he didn't want to say out loud. That someone might try to kill me. The best way I can protect her is if we don't tell anyone who she is. Or at least, anyone outside our family. Those who need to know, Wesley concluded. Plus, we don't even know for sure that I am Celine's daughter, I pointed out. No reason to get everyone all excited about something that probably isn't even accurate. Haven, Wes groaned. What? It's true. There is no proof. No conclusive evidence. Your blanket? Coincidence, I shrugged. Lennox was convinced. Yes, because his dad brainwashed him his entire life to believe if he marked me as his mate, he would be stronger and could be an alpha, I told him, exasperated. You're really going to take the word of a psychopath who attacked me in an alley over legitimate facts and science? Over the DNA test that confirmed I am just human? I argued. I mean, obviously I don't know what kind of tests you have that can detect supernatural DNA or whatever, but wouldn't that show up? Harrison's lip twitched as he watched Wes and I go back and forth with our arguments. We can ask Dr. Russo to clarify that for us, he suggested. Wes furrowed his brow. That would mean telling another person, he said. True, but Maya and Levi already know. And I trust Dr. Russo as much as I trust my beta, gamma, and delta, Harrison replied. Wes sighed. All right. Go ahead and call him. Harrison walked to his desk and picked up his phone. Can't he do that mind link thing? I asked Wesley while his dad spoke to the doctor. Yes, but Dr. Russo prefers phone calls. In case he's in surgery or something. That way, he's not distracted from his work. That makes sense, I nodded. Will I be able to do that? Mind link? He blinked at me. I don't know, he admitted with a shake of his head. You'll be able to mind link her, Wes, but she won't be able to reply, Harrison said as he set his phone down. Dr. Russo will be here in a few minutes, he added. Wes and I both nodded, and I leaned back into his warmth, closing my eyes and soaking in his presence and comfort. He put his arms all the way around my body, squeezing me as he placed a kiss on the top of my head. Are you all right? He whispered into my hair. It's been a wild couple of days since Friday, I replied. My brain feels like mush and I am beyond exhausted. I just want to go home and curl up in our bed with you and sleep for a week, I admitted. Whatever you want, Sugar Plum, he told me. We can do whatever you want. After we get some answers, okay? I just nodded and kept my eyes closed with my head on his chest. His hand cradled my face, his thumb rubbing against my cheek as he pressed another kiss to my head and inhaled deeply. The knock on the office door jolted me from my snoozing state. The warmth of Wesley's body and his delicious scent had lulled me to sleep, and I shook myself and rubbed my eyes as Dr. Russo walked in. Thank you for coming to speak with us even at this late hour, Harrison told him as they shook hands. It's no problem, the doctor replied. I'm always happy to help. What did you need to know? When you tested Haven's blood, what exactly did you test for? Wesley asked him, taking my hand in his and rubbing his thumb across my knuckles. Everything? Dr. Russo chuckled. There is a whole grocery list of supernatural types we test for when we run it. Why do you ask? Does it test for divinity? If someone has the blood of the gods? Wesley asked. Dr. Russo laughed, his head thrown back to the ceiling. But when the three of us didn't join him, he stopped and said, Oh, you're serious? Wesley nodded, and the doctor rubbed his head. I don't think so. I don't even know the last time there was a record of a deity or a demigod among us. I don't think the DNA test can check for that. And like I told you, her results showed she is completely human. There wasn't even a hint of something odd about her DNA. Could someone suppress that DNA by spells or magic, though? Wes asked. Like a witch trying to hide her. Maybe Lennox's dad or her adopted parents had her spelled so no one would notice the strange DNA? As far as I know, there are no spells capable of that, he said with a shake of his head. A witch could hide her if you tried to search for her using human means or even magical means if she was a powerful witch. But they can't suppress or alter someone's genes. Wesley blew out a breath of frustration. Well, then, how are we going to figure this out? How are we going to know for sure if she is Celine's daughter? How am I supposed to know when to mark her? He ranted, speaking to no one in particular. Dr. Russo's head snapped to me. Wait, are you saying she's? No. We're not saying that. I'm just human, like you said. They're going off of the word of my addled ex-boyfriend who was told that's who I was, I told him. We don't know for sure either way, Wes pointed out. There is a reason his dad believes you're Celine's daughter. He didn't just find a random human and say, ah yes, this one must be Celine's promised daughter. Okay, well then, how do you suggest we figure out the answer? Call his dad? Hello Mr. Shelton, sorry to bother you, but would you please tell us why you think Haven is a demigod? His parents are gone too, Harrison told me. We didn't look into them before, because we didn't know about them. But after we learned Lennox was a Leakin too, we did. It seems they disappeared around the same time as the Wainwrights. So we're back at square one, then, I said, shrugging. Not necessarily, Dr. Russo said slowly. There is one other thing you can try. And what's that? Wes asked. Visiting the oracles, he answered. The oracles? Like ancient Greece, Oedipus Rex, Oracle at Delphi oracles? I asked, my voice raising. Yes, Harrison answered. My jaw hit the floor. Wesley laughed and placed his finger under my chin to close my mouth. I told you, all the stories are based on truth, he chuckled. And Dr. Russo is right. The werewolf oracles in Greece can talk to Celine sometimes. If Celine wishes to speak to them, they may be able to find the answers we need. I swallowed and blinked back my disbelief and shock. It seemed each hour that passed, I was becoming more entrenched in this magical, mystical world that I never realized existed. And even if I wanted to, there was no escaping it. I was stuck in it for good. All right, I sighed. It looks like we're going to Greece.
Haven's POV.
It took far less time than I thought it would for Harrison and Emily to organize a visit to the oracles for us. One perk of them owning a private jet. A luxurious private jet that I now sat in as we flew over the continental US towards the Atlantic Ocean and Greece. We would first land in Athens, then get on a smaller plane to hop over to Santorini. And then from there, we would take a ferry to the magically concealed island that held the Temple of Selene, the temple the oracles lived and worked in. I stared blankly out the window. My chin rested on my arms, and my arms rested on the back of the plush, cream-colored couch in the secluded room Wesley had claimed as ours for the flight. He was out in the main cabin, speaking with Nolan about details of our trip. Even with how tired I was, my brain would not stop working overtime. There were still so many questions, so many unknowns. So many things I needed more information about. The pocket door slid open, and Wesley slipped inside, a bottle of water in each hand. He smiled at me as he closed the door behind him, then he crouched in front of me, handing me a water bottle. You should sleep, Sugar Plum, he said, rubbing my leg. We still have a long flight ahead of us. Nolan is already snoring. I can't relax, I told him. My brain won't turn off. Let me help you, he murmured, kissing my forehead before standing up. He walked to the wall and pushed a button, making light-canceling shutters descend over the windows and making the lights in the plane dim to a low glow. He set his water down on the small tray, grabbed a blanket, then sat at the other end of the couch, patting the tops of his thighs. Lay down, he ordered me in a low voice. I blew out a breath and scooted over to him, unable to resist the warmth of his body and the deep voice he liked to use when he was in his protective, bossy pants Wes mode. My head descended into his lap, facing him, and he spread the blanket over me. His hand played in my hair, still slightly damp from the speedy shower we took before we left Crescent Lake. Tell me what's on your mind, he said as I looked up into his deep chocolate brown eyes. What did you mean when you said you need to know when to mark me? His hand stilled on my hair for a split second, then began moving again. Since you're human, I have to mark you under the same moon phase you were born under, he murmured. His fingers lingered on that ultra-sensitive place on my neck he'd shown me when he first told me about marking, and I shivered and bit my lip at the tender touch. But I don't know what phase that is, because you don't know for sure when my birthday is, I finished for him, and he nodded, a wistful look on his face. You're hoping the oracles can ask Celine, I realized. He nodded again. But if I am Celine's daughter, wouldn't that mean I'm not human? Would you still have to mark me under the correct moon phase? That's not a risk I'm willing to take, he said, shaking his head vehemently. Marking a human under the wrong moon phase can kill them. I will not assume that we don't need the proper moon phase. It's not worth the potential outcome. But even if you're not her daughter, I'm hoping they'll learn when your birthday is. So then I can mark you. I want to mark you as soon as I can. I don't want to wait any longer than necessary. I mean, he cleared his throat, if that's what you want, he mumbled. I reached my hand up to intertwine my fingers with his where they still lay against my neck. Of course that's what I want, Wesley. I already told you that. He moved my hand to his lips and placed a kiss on my knuckles. I just want you to be sure. It's like marriage for us, but even more permanent. The mark can only be removed by the king or the council, and only under extreme circumstances. I made my choice, Wes. I choose this. I choose you. He smiled, and I let go of his hand to pull the blanket up higher, my body relaxing more already just with him nearby. His hand moved to my back and rubbed it in gentle strokes. My eyelids grew heavy, but there was still one more question I wanted to ask him before I forgot about it. How will I mark you? What? He asked. How will I mark you? I want everyone to know you're mine too, I repeated, lifting my head to nip at his abdomen. He laughed. I don't know, Haven. But we'll figure something out, okay? I'd be honored to wear your mark, whatever it is, and however you choose to give it to me, he told me. I nodded, and he shifted his body underneath mine, moving so we lay next to each other. His arms wrapped around me and his lips brushed my forehead as I drifted off to sleep. The rest of our trip to the hidden island passed in a blur. I barely had the brainpower to absorb the view of the little island as we approached on the boat. But I forced myself to take it all in. I didn't know if we would ever return to this place, and I wanted to remember this part of our adventure. Upon initial inspection, the island looked almost identical to Santorini or any other Greek isle. There were white houses set on the hill of the island, blue doors adorning many of them. But one major difference was the wolves trotting up and down the stairs and along the shore, mixed in with others still in their human forms. The air crackled with magic as well, an energy that zipped and zinged over my skin and through my cells. There was a protective magic, one that hid the island and its inhabitants from prying eyes. But there was also another magic mixed in, something that I couldn't identify the nature of, but I could feel it nonetheless. I said nothing to Wesley or Nolan about it as our guide led us to our quarters for our stay. Wesley already believed I wasn't just human, and I was having my doubts, but I didn't want to give him any more ammunition. Our guide led us through the stone pathways and white houses and pink and white flowering trees to a small villa tucked into the shadows of the hill overlooking the sparkling, clear, blue sea. There, a young woman with dark brown hair and green eyes stood waiting for us in the doorway. He walked by her and set our bags in the small sitting area as she introduced herself to us. Hello, and welcome, she told us in a bright voice. I am Cassandra, and I am the acolyte who will assist you during your stay. Nice to meet you, Wesley said, extending his hand. I'm future Alpha Wesley Stone, and this is my Luna, Haven Kenway, and our future Gamma, Nolan Shepherd. She shook each of our hands and gave us a smile. We're happy to have all of you here, she said. The High Oracle will send me to summon you after sunset, when she is ready for you. You can rest and eat and prepare yourselves while you wait. We have provided you with the attire you must wear in the temple. You will find it in your rooms. You must wear only what we provide and nothing else. And there is some moussaka fresh out of the oven that I prepared for your arrival, she informed us, stepping aside and gesturing into the lodgings. Thank you, Cassandra, I said as we walked in, and she nodded, then turned and left without another word. We took the time to do as she'd recommended, sitting down at the narrow brown table under a chandelier in the dining room and digging into the provided freshly made moussaka. This is delicious, Nolan said as he wiped his mouth. Wes, you should learn to make this. Doesn't Rachel cook for you? Wesley asked. Yeah, Mexican food. Tacos. Beans. Homemade tortillas. Salsa. Tamales. Don't get me wrong, I love Mexican food, but sometimes I want more variety. I'll learn how to make it for you, Nolan, I chuckled. Thanks, Luna. He beamed. What about me? Wes pouted. That's up to Nolan if he wants to share, I shrugged. You're so cruel, he whined, covering his heart with his hand. I'll share with you as long as my Luna isn't mad at you, Nolan said with a wink at me. Wesley sighed and shook his head, but laughed along with us. I smiled at him and leaned over to kiss his cheek. I'm going to go change. The sun is almost setting, I told him. I'll join you, he said, standing to follow me. Nolan snickered, and Wes shot him a glare. Don't even act like you don't take every available opportunity to see Rachel naked, Wes said, pointing at him. I didn't say a thing, Nolan said, lifting his hands, his lips twitching. I rolled my eyes as the two of them continued to argue, walking into the slightly bigger of the two bedrooms, where I could see a long white chiffon dress hanging by the window. I shut the door behind me and grabbed the dress, taking it over to the full-length mirror in the corner near the arched alcove that held the bed. I undressed, taking off even my bra and underwear, so the only thing I would wear was the dress they gave me, just as Cassandra had instructed. I pulled the dress over my head, and as the voluminous white fabric floated down and settled around my feet, Wes walked into the room, closing the door behind him. He stared at my reflection in the mirror, his eyes skating over my chiffon-covered body. The dress was almost completely sheer, with a deep V neckline that went to my waist. The outline of my breasts was just barely visible beneath the bodice's fabric. The fluttery sleeves ended just above my elbows, and if there had been any less fabric on the skirt, the outline of my legs and my butt and pussy would have been on display as well. Wesley's pupils dilated the way they always did when his possessiveness took over. I should have been ashamed at the way my body reacted whenever he got that look. I should have been ashamed at the dirty things I wanted to do to him and let him do to me anytime he got that gleam in his eyes. But I wasn't. He made me feel beautiful and treasured and wanted, and I wouldn't ever be ashamed of that. I tracked his movements as he also changed into the white linen pants they'd provided for him to wear. The way the muscles in his torso rippled and tensed as he dressed and moved had my mouth and my pussy watering for him. The size and bulk of his muscles might intimidate others, but to me, they symbolized protection and comfort. Every cell in my body ached for his touch as he walked up behind me, in nothing but those white pants. His toned and slightly tanned chest, with a sprinkling of chest hair, was on full display, and I wanted to run my hands from his broad shoulders to the defined muscles of his abdomen disappearing beneath the waistline of his pants. His hands came to settle at my waist, his fingertips playing in the bottom of the V neckline. I leaned back into his body and closed my eyes at both his touch and against the horde of wasps swarming in my stomach. Why are you so nervous, Sugar Plum? I'm anxious about what we'll learn, I admitted. I'm worried about disappointing everyone if I'm not who you are all hoping I am. I already told you, it doesn't matter to me. You're mine no matter what. I love you no matter what, he said. His hand traced up the edge of the dress's neckline to my breast. His fingers lingered there, brushing against the side and underneath of my breast, exposed by the neckline. And what if they say I am Celine's daughter? I whispered, tilting my head to look up at him. What if I am, and more people find out? What if I am, but everyone is disappointed because I'm not really anything special? I added, finally giving voice to my fears. His hand on my waist turned me so I faced him, and his other hand brushed my hair out of my face. Then we'll face that together, too. And I'll kill anyone who says you're not special. I scoffed. That's a little extreme, Wes. Maybe, but I promise you, I'll make them regret hurting my sugar plum. I reached up and kissed him, throwing my arms around his neck. My body pressed insistently against his, a moan leaving my mouth at the feel of his warm, naked skin. His growl answered my moan, and his hands gripped my hips, pulling my body away from his. Sugar plum, if you keep that up, I'm going to rip that flimsy dress off of your perfect little body and fuck you until the sun comes back up, he warned. That sounds fine to me, I groaned, fighting against his hold on me. I wasn't sure what came over me, but something about the sizzling magic on the island combined with the scent of the ocean and the flowering trees and the way Wes looked in the dimming light had me ready to fall to my knees and offer myself to him, to let him take me in whatever way he wanted. We have somewhere to be, he pointed out between our kisses. His voice was deep and rough, and while his words tried to stop us, the desperate movements of his mouth and hands did not match them. His kisses grew more urgent, and his hands relented, moving away from my hips and up my body, caressing the sides of my breasts. We can have a quickie, then, I told him, my head rolling back as he kissed down my throat. I moved my hands down to his abs.
Wesley's POV.
Once Haven and I had straightened ourselves out after our quickie, we left the villa with Nolan and Cassandra, following them through the winding stone paths of the island towards the center. The starlight glinted off the white houses, and the scent of the blossoming bougainvillea trees mixed with the salt of the seawater and invaded my senses. It was that exact scent that had awoken that desperate, aching need in me while we were getting ready. That, and the swirling magic of the island, and the way Haven looked in that almost see-through dress. I inhaled again, and caught another whiff of our mixed scents underneath the smells of the island, the scent of my cum lingering between her legs. I didn't let her wash it off. Not with that dress she had to wear. Not with the way it hinted at what lay underneath. That scent would warn off any wandering eyes. Luckily, the dim light from the darkened sky prevented her dress from being too sheer. Had we been in the sun, I'm sure there would be nothing left to the imagination. But under the light of the stars and the pitch-black night sky, there was only a subtle glimpse of the small swell of her breasts and the curve of her ass and thighs as they extended into the billowing fabric of the skirt. We reached a stone archway covered in jasmine. We could see nothing beyond the archway, as the path curved back into dense hedges and vines and trees. You may continue on, Cassandra said, stopping just on this side of the arch your gamma, and I will wait for you back at your lodgings. Nolan can't join us? I asked, my brow furrowed. I glanced to my gamma, to the matching frown on his face. He crossed his arms over his bare chest and looked at Cassandra. Only those seeking answers may enter the sacred grounds, she told us. Then why did I have to wear this? Nolan asked, gesturing at the white linen pants similar to mine that offset his caramel skin. It is custom, she shrugged, then smiled at Haven and me. Just follow the path. It will take you directly to the temple. I nodded at Nolan, and he sighed but nodded back, stepping aside so Haven and I could pass. We followed the overgrown path, careful to avoid the reaching branches and winding vines that grew denser as the path got closer to the center of the island. Haven rounded the corner in front of me and gasped, freezing in place. I stepped up behind her, and my own breath caught in my throat at the sight before me. The Temple of Selene. Bathed in starlight, the round, open-air building had a roof held up by pillars, with jasmine winding around each pillar. Sheer fabric hung inside the temple, hiding the interior from view. There was a small, crystal-clear pool in front of the temple, with a flawless reflection of the temple in it. It was beautiful, and as I glanced over at my mate, my breath was taken away again. The way her hair glowed in the starlight, and the way she looked in her gown for the temple, with the scent of the island and her own sweet scent blending. She looked like she belonged here. I knew she had her doubts and insecurities, but the more I thought about it, the more convinced I became that she was, in fact, Selene's daughter. I reached out and took her hand in mine, stepping in close to her and lifting her hand to my lips to kiss. Walking towards us down the steps of the temple was an older she-wolf with dark auburn hair and green eyes, dressed in a white robe made of a similar fabric to Haven's dress. Her eyes held a wisdom that was only obtainable from holding the knowledge of the gods. The High Oracle. We've been expecting you, she told us as she stopped in front of us. Yes, his mom, Luna Emily, contacted you to inform you of our visit, Haven said. The oracle shook her head. We've been expecting you for much longer than that, my dear. How? She asked. Celine told us you would come. You, and the young Alpha from California. So, she is Celine's daughter, then? I asked, my heart racing in my chest. The woman's eyes twinkled, but she didn't respond. Didn't confirm or deny. You may ask her that yourselves, she said, turning to walk back up the stairs. Ourselves? How? I just assumed you would ask her for us, I said as we followed her, hand in hand, through the curtains and into the temple. You must find the answers you seek together. We can connect those who are worthy of a visit with Celine to her through a sacred ritual. And what is this ritual? Haven asked. First, you must both rid yourselves of the baggage that is holding you back from being completely accepting of your bond. I swallowed and Haven froze, looking down at the floor and avoiding my eyes. Then, as you reconnect and reconcile, we will harness the energies from your euphoria to help your minds leave our realm behind and join Celine in her moon realm. And in English? Haven asked with an awkward chuckle. I looked around the temple, at the candles and the wine and the many cushions and plush fabrics and furs in the sunken floor of the temple. At the alcoves where there were similar cushions and sheer curtains that would block the occupants from view of those in the main room of the temple. I clenched my jaw and blew out a breath, then looked down at Haven. She means we have to do a sex ritual, sugar plum. Her mouth popped open into a little round O, her blue eyes widening in realization as she took in the temple's interior. To put it crudely, yes, the oracle confirmed. How does it work? Haven asked, her voice barely a whisper. I mean, I know we have sex, but the other oracles and myself will be in the alcoves there, she said as she gestured around the temple. You'll be watching us? Haven asked, her eyes following the sweep of the oracle's hand. I picked up on the flutter of her heartbeat and the nerves flying through her body, and underneath that, the hint of her arousal. I bit back my laugh and my surprise at her reaction. Public sex, while uncommon now, was a huge part of werewolf culture in the past, when mates used to claim each other in front of the pack. Even my Lycan, usually quicker than me to snap into possessive mode, was oddly at peace with the idea. While I didn't love the idea of others seeing my mate naked and in the throes of passion, a deeper, more primal part of me relished in the thought of staking my claim over her so publicly. Even if it was just as part of a sacred, somewhat private ritual. But Haven's reaction to that bit of information surprised me. I was not expecting her to be turned on by the idea. But of course, my mate always surprised me. No, the oracle said, answering Haven's questions. Not really. Not if you don't wish us to, at least. There are curtains there, she pointed to the far wall of the temple, that we can draw around you and your mate while you complete the ritual. Haven nodded. I will give you and your mate time to discuss. We'll do it, Haven blurted out, and I squeezed her hand, drawing her gaze to me. We need answers, she said to me. No matter what I think, no matter my doubts, we need answers either way. You need them to mark me. We need them for our own peace of mind. And if this is how we get them, then so be it, she finished in a firm voice. Very well, the oracle said, a soft, knowing smile on her lips. I will close the curtain while you prepare yourselves, she added with a nod at the sunken temple floor. I walked forward, Haven's hand still in mine, pulling her with me as the oracle closed the drapes. She dropped my hand and took a few more steps, and I closed the distance, stepping up behind her to whisper to her. Tell me. Haven. I chuckled, kissing the shell of her ear and raising my hands to rest on her hips. How excited did the thought of others watching us fuck make you? I kissed her ear, and she blushed, the pink extending down her neck and chest. More excited than it should have. She whispered. I smiled against her cheek and nodded, my heart pounding in my chest at her confession. Me too, I told her, reassuring her. She relaxed back against my chest, tilting her head to kiss me softly. I sat on the cushions, reaching over for the wine, and Haven lowered her body next to me, her eyes meeting mine. I sipped the wine, letting the full-bodied flavor of the deep red bouquet float over my tongue, and letting the warmth of the alcohol spread through my body and relax me. I offered the goblet to Haven, holding it for her as she took her sips. After setting the goblet down, I pulled her to me, settling her sideways in my lap, one arm around her waist, and the other in her hair as I pressed my mouth to hers. My tongue swept over the seam of her lips, tasting the wine that lingered there. "Tell me," I murmured to her. "Tell me what you're afraid of." She tightened her hold on my shoulders, her eyes closing as she breathed in deeply. "I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop," she admitted. "All my life, whenever things seem to be going well, something happened to prove me wrong. I keep wondering when that will happen. I keep waiting for you to realize this isn't what you want." "Haven," I soothed, my hands moving up and down on her back. I know," she murmured, pulling her body closer to mine and turning so she straddled me. "I know it's an unfounded fear. But it's my truth," she said. I nodded, my nose brushing hers. "I still think I don't deserve you," I confessed. "I still blame myself for what happened to you. When we were kids." "That wasn't your fault, Wesley," she told me, her hands holding my cheeks. "You were just a kid. What could you have done? If I would have acted faster, realized sooner. It doesn't matter. It's in the past. We found each other again, and that's what is important," she said. "Even so," I said, my voice hoarse and tight, "I will never stop proving myself to you. I will never stop trying to earn your love and your heart." She kissed me, her body pressing against mine.